All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Recognize that we have all members present except for one, Mike Arns. If you would please stand with us as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to also read our vision statement here at Covington is equipping every student to achieve their aspirations. We're reading that at every meeting. Approval of agenda. I need a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. At this point, we're going to move to a public hearing concerning our general obligation bonds of 2025. The next item on the agenda is for the board to hold a project hearing on the proposed project. If you're interested in speaking at the hearing, please make sure you have sign-in sheet at the front of the room, which should include your name and address. After presentation by the administration and its advisors, there will be an opportunity for the public to make comments about the project. At the hearing, we will ask that each person limit their comments to 3 minutes and that the topic be limited to the proposed project under consideration. The notice of this project hearing was published as legally required. At this time, I will ask Mr. Janeski to explain the purpose of this hearing.
Okay, pursuant to Indiana Code 20-26-7-37, before a school corporation may spend more than $1 million to build, repair, or alter a school building that will be financed by a lease or bonds, it must hold a public hearing at which explanation of the potential value of the project to the school corporation and community are given. This public hearing, the adoption of resolution, are the very beginning of the legal process. These resolutions establish the maximum financial terms for the proposed project.
We will now hear from Mr. Janeski about the process of determining and communicating the project to the community and the need for the project.
Well, we've already had one meeting. It was open to the public. Actually, we had some community members who did join us as we walked some of the buildings and looked at some of the things that pinpointed a number of things that needed to be taken care of. We had some things at the elementary school, the middle school, the high school, the vocational annex, and within the junior high gym and the athletic complex. So there's a number of things that are in dire need. And as far as what the community looks for, I will put something out eventually to them, letting them know exactly what we've taken care of so far and what other things we need to look into in the future.
All right, we will now hear from Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors, LLC, our municipal advisor about how the proposed project will be financed, as well as information about the effect on the typical property taxpayer. And we have Brock and Edgar here with us this evening.
Thank you, President Herzog, Mr. Janeski, members of the board. It's good to be back here this evening. For those who may not remember me, as President Herzog mentioned, I'm Brock Bausch with the firm Baker Tilly. We serve as municipal advisor, or financial advisor, used synonymous with one another. So we assist the school district with financings as well as many, many school districts around the state of Indiana. So it's great to be back here this evening. With me this evening is Edgar Rudiaga, and it's going to be his first presentation now that he's about a year into his term at Baker Tilly. So go easy on him, but he'll do a great job, and he will not forget Covington anytime soon since he'll be his first. So he'll walk through three main things. Walk through outstanding debt of Covington as of today. Look at the project parameters. You heard Mr. Janeski state that we are targeting max parameters. So we're giving the authority, but not the obligation to issue bonds. So you hear a lot of chatter right now through the Indiana General Assembly. So this does not obligate us to move forward at any point in time, but gives us the authority to move forward and give that flexibility to issue bonds as the board sees fit. So we'll continue to monitor the Indiana General Assembly as it relates to the financial planning as part of this project. Then Edgar will wrap it up with how the debt could be structured with the outstanding debt as of today and how these bonds could be structured to avoid any type of tax rate increase to taxpayers in the debt service fund. So with that said, Mr. Viadia.
Thank you, Brock. Good evening. The first thing we will be going over is the current debt structure, debt picture, which is, the slides. One more, please. One more. Yeah. As you can see, you currently have 5 securities outstanding. In the year 2026, payments drop about 40,000, which allows us a little bit of capacity to issue this year. For the visual learners in the next slide, you can see the same information in a bar graph. You can see that small drop in payments from 2025 and 2026 that continued to 2027. As bonds fall off, you need to replace those with new bonds. As you may remember, the state limits the amount of general obligation bonds you can issue, and that is calculated by dividing the 2025 certified net assessed value of 413 million divided by 3 multiplied by 2. Then you subtract the outstanding general obligation debt. That gives us approximately about $406,000 to work with. As of today, as existing general obligation debt matures on July 15, 2025, the capacity will grow to $526,000.
Edgar, I'm going to jump in here really quickly if you don't mind. Yep. So just to clear up one thing, Vicki, if you don't mind going back one slide. So if you look at footnote number 2, with as Covington makes its payment on June 30th for that July 15th payment, that capacity increases to about 525,000. So you'll see in the coming slides, the max parameter or the max bond issuance is proposed to be 660,000. So Covington will have the option, if you pay your GO bond payment a little bit early at the end of the year, that means that increases that capacity to that 660,000, which a lot of schools throughout the state of Indiana do. If you have the cash to make that payment early, you can increase that capacity. Sorry, Edgar.
As Brock said, we prepared the financing information based on that 660,000. We have prepared 2 scenarios for you today, one being the quickest repayment and one being a 5-year term repayment. Both scenarios are based on 5% interest rates and assume no AV growth. Both of these scenarios will keep your tax rate at the 2025 level.
Quick reminder that, pardon me. Quick reminder that the 5% interest rate that Edgar mentioned just a moment ago, those are based upon what are called tax exempt rates. So school corporations throughout the nation issue tax exempt bonds. That means that the bondholders do not pay income tax on that interest. So because of that, they can offer a little bit lower interest rate than perhaps what you get from down the street in your bank on your own home mortgage. So that's why the interest rates are typically less for a school bond than your own home mortgage.
In this slide, you can see scenario 1 with the repayment being in 2 years. That first payment is a little higher than usual due to the required spend down of the debt service fund cash balance. The tax rate remains the same as 2025. In the next slide is scenario 2. We kept the 2026 payment the same and redistributed the rest of the payments throughout the additional years.
So the board will not have to make a decision tonight on the structure of it. Just know the max parameters allow for either a 2 or a 5-year repayment, and we'll make that decision later into the calendar year as the General Assembly ends its work. We analyze what the impact is for whatever bills and laws passed downtown to determine whichever tax rate we want to target going into the sale most likely in the fall.
Can we go back one slide real quick? So realistically, this, as far as this, the way this is most likely going to look, it's going to be a lot more even than this trajectory going down. We're going to be taking on in the years to come. We'll be taking on more debt to keep that as even as possible.
That's a great question. You're absolutely correct, President Herzog. The intended purpose here is to give the school board the authority or opportunity to come back as early as 2026. And if you have additional capital needs, like a lot of schools do, that $660,000 is not going to be enough to tackle all of those. Give yourself the flexibility to come back as early as 2026 and target additional capital needs.
I know it's impossible to see into the future, but can you give me an idea of where you feel interest rates will be over the next 2 to 3 years?
It's a really good question. Can't say with certainty. So what I think at this point, what we've heard most recently in what a lot of banks, a lot of economists, depends upon which day you ask them. So I've been relying upon some Bloomberg data based upon when you see 70% rate reduction projected to occur, or probability to occur, that typically means that rates are going to get cut during that FOMC meeting. So standing here today, you've heard any rate cuts from either 2 to 5 in 2025, where Citibank was the one who was projecting 5 rate cuts. If I had to make an assumption today, 2 to 3 is probably the most recent and reliable assumption to use at this point. But again, the economy and the metrics change daily, but I would say 2 or 3 at this point in 2025.
Thanks.
Can you go back one more real quick?
Just wanted to see the first one.
So what we'll need, the indicators to determine what is the best path between scenario A and scenario B is when 2026 net assessed value is released on August 1st, on or around August 1st, we'll be able to determine exactly where our estimated tax rate will come in. So if the board wants to do additional studying before you come back and issue bonds, we could either have flexibility, as President Herzog asked on scenario B, or the second scenario, to come back in 2026. This one, we could structure it in a way that give you additional time to work through the conversations with the community, that if you didn't want to wait until 2027, you could pursue it with a quicker repayment like this.
So that quicker repayment,
Basically would limit the amount of debt to keep it level that we would be able to take the next year and spread it across, well, this one versus the other one, where if you needed a bigger chunk, you'd spread out your initial payments for like plan 2,
Yeah.
right? To where you could grab some more money.
You go back to
On
that, go back to
2027.
that payment one, Vicky, where it showed the difference in payment.
You're talking about a difference on paper, about $15,000 in interest between the two options. I will also point out that with not knowing exactly what's going to happen with the Indiana General Assembly and their decision, you see in footnote 1 that we are stretching, just to give this board and the community as much flexibility as possible, the maximum term. You could stretch these out to a 2032 budget year repayment if you so choose, but you don't have to do that. We're setting these parameters to be as flexible as possible. So with so many variables unknown at this point, all you can do is prepare yourself to react to in the time when you want to sell bonds. So by the time we assume we're going to sell in the fall, we'll know net assessed value, we'll know what the Indiana General Assembly has done for any type of project threshold, and we'll know better at that point what the market's doing in the interest rate, so we'll be able to react to it.
All right, any more questions? Good.
Great questions.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We had nobody sign up for public comment, correct?
Right.
So we will just skip the public comment portion.
you guys are able to, I mean, if you need to leave, you guys are good too.
Yeah.
It's up to
No more
you.
questions?
You can just wait. We'll go ahead and, we gotta vote on this here in a second. So we can, after we do that, you guys can take off if you want. You got that next part?
You're talking about consider project resolution. project resolution is required when school is planning to spend more than $1 million per building. We're in a conservative area, but we'll talk about that anyway. It contains the estimated hard and soft construction costs and the cost of issuance and establishes the total project cost. It also contains the estimated tax impact.
So at this time, could I have a motion and a second to adopt the project resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt the project resolution.
I'll second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Get that next part there.
The preliminary bond resolution contains the project cost for the project, maximum interest rate, and other financial terms such as first interest payment date, and maturity dates of the bonds.
So at this time, could I have a motion and a second to adopt the preliminary bond resolution?
Make a motion to adopt the preliminary bond resolution.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed.
The next resolution is a reimbursement resolution relating to the financing of the construction project. The resolution permits the school corporation to reimburse itself from bond proceeds for any cash which it might spend on the project prior to the closing on the bonds. It is required by federal tax law in order to preserve the school corporation's ability to reimburse itself.
So at this time, could I have a motion and a second to adopt the reimbursement resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt the reimbursement resolution.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. All right, this time we'll adjourn that portion of the meeting. If you guys want to take off, you can take off. Appreciate your time. And
Thank you.
I have
I'm sure
one quick
we-
question for you.
Of course, please.
I'm gonna go back to the interest rates. If this was sold this afternoon, what would the interest rate be?
On the 2-year or 5-year, you're probably gonna get somewhere in the low to mid threes. So
Okay.
3 to 3.5 maybe, depending upon fluctuation in the market.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn.
we did not. We can.
I'll make a motion
I'll
to
second.
adjourn.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Hearing meeting? Aye.
I'm gonna try and say something to you guys.
Okay. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
The next section is a public comment for agenda items on the regular board meeting, and we have nobody that signed up for that as well, so we will skip over that portion. Which brings us to the consent agenda. I'll go through here what that pertains to. Review and approval of minutes. And that's your March 10th regular session, March 10th executive session, and March 25th executive session board minutes. Review and approval of claims docket. Review and approval of fundraisers, we have 2 fundraisers on for this month. The elementary school will be doing their trash bag sales in August of next year, and the CHS cheer will be doing Cincy products. There are no donations this month. Review and approval of field trips, 2 field trips. 4th grade will be going to Forest Glen, and the middle school special education will be going to DAC for Career Expo. And also review and approval of the personnel report. Which this, I've mentioned this before, we're hoping this next meeting in May, maybe this stuff will all be online where you guys can get on and see all these things that I just talked about. So you'll have them up to date, minus the personnel report, minus the personnel report. So that'll be uploaded after we vote on it. So I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. All right, old business, second reading and approval of policy updates, volume 36, number 2, and volume 37, number 1. You don't need me to read through all these policies, do you? There's tons of them. So we're working on some 6,000, some 7,000s. So I need a motion and a second to approve second reading and approval of policy updates.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading and approval of policy updates.
I'll second. Sorry.
Go ahead, you're good.
Motion, I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess we have any comments on those policy? No comments. All right, on to first reading of policy updates. PO 1213.01 through AG 754A. So this is first reading for this month. We'll approve those next month upon second reading. New business, approval of bus driver stipend for active coaches. It's recommended that approval of $50 stipend for coaches who hold a CDL license and drive a bus requiring a CDL license to athletic events that they are coaching, retroactive to March 1st, 2025. Need a motion and a second to approve that stipend for bus drivers for active coaches.
I'll make a motion to approve the stipend for the active coaches.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Keep forgetting to ask a question. You need to
You're all right. I'll poke you.
Approval of live streaming board meeting stipends. It's recommended approval of a $75 stipend for the first 3 hours minimum and an additional $25 an hour for any additional time. And I'm not mistaken, this is for our live streamer guy back here, correct? That's what we're talking about. Not for board members when the meetings go along, right? We don't get a $75 stipend. So this is to pay our IT guys that are doing our live stream here. So it'd be $75 automatically unless it goes over 3 hours. And at that point, it'll be $25 an hour additional. So I need a motion and a second to approve that live stream board meeting stipend.
I'll make a motion to approve the live streaming board meeting stipend.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions?
I got you.
Nope, no questions. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Approval of summer seasonal assistance / maintenance, that's custodial. Recommend approving summer seasonal assistance for 6 maintenance custodial positions at $15.50 an hour, Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., June 2nd through July 25th. This is not new. We do this every summer.
This is pretty much the exact same as
Yeah.
last, so.
For painting and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
Additional help with
Yeah.
custodial painting, and then usually a couple guys that do help us with the weeding and
Right.
maintenance outside.
Okay. So I need a motion and a second to approve the summer assistance.
I'll make a motion to approve the summer assistance.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions on that? No? All right. All in favor? Aye. None opposed. Which brings us to our general public comments, which we don't have anybody signed up for those. So we'll skip over that. We'll move on to our administrative reports. Hand it over to Mr. Janeski.
Yeah, I just want to go over real quick. I talked to everybody briefly during the hearing about facility management, facility projects that we've got going on, we need to continue to work on. We've got a number of things we've done at the elementary school, most of them in the gym. We replaced, we replaced the speaker system in the grade school gym. We tried to replace some of the ceiling tile and clean the vents. They were disgusting. We've got some new playground mulch that's been put out there. I'm short. he's supposed to be coming back in the next day or two and dropping off the rest, so we can get it fixed up and finished. We've got a new ceiling tile areas in the high school. We've got at the athletic complex, we have new water heater, excuse me, that's going in the gym and the annex building. It's been set to be put in place. We've got irrigation fixed in the baseball and softball fields. We got a new hot water heater in the athletic complex. Baseball field, infield was turfed. By turfed, I mean we had the stuff that was laying under the
Field and graded.
Repaired the softball press box stairs. We repaired I assume we have so far. We ordered the window for
It's in process, yeah.
in the process of getting here. We have a heater in quadrant 1, needs a fan motor that got taken care of. So we've got a lot of things we've tried to take care of. And I also, if you look at the back of what I gave you, the last 3 or 4 pages, well, there's about 3 pages in which I've put down what our go bond pieces are and which pieces have been completed that was part of our past bonds. I will tell you, I'd be happy to sit down with any of you, and if you want to change, I just kind of stuck stuff in here that I thought you guys would prioritize in that particular order. If you guys decide you want a different prioritization of these projects, you just got to let me know. We can switch some of these between 23 bond, 24 bond, 25 bond, etc., to get it to a point where you feel comfortable.
How much do we have left on our last bond issuance?
23. You have 500 and some thousand left because we've got like 4 or 5 projects done that haven't cost much money. $37,000 is what you've spent so far, and I've got some in here that we have already issued. We've already decided we're going to do this year, and I'm going to let Paul talk about one of them here in a minute. We're going to replace that phone system in all buildings because and he's afraid that if it goes down, we're in deep trouble because it'll take the whole system with it. We're also going to replace the school entry fob system this summer. Actually, he's going to try out to get it started on May?
On the which one?
The fob system.
In June.
June.
Yeah.
Perfect. There's several things in here that we're going to try to get done this summer. You can see the list. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, about 16 different things that we may be able to finish out the 2023 bond with just over the summer. I've put some stuff in there for the 24 go bonds, general obligation bonds. A lot of those are things that are going to have to be done when the kids aren't in here. Things like you got a drain underneath the library at the grade school that's leaking. I think it's been leaking for years. They try to go in and drill it out
It's collapsed. So
and it collapses
time you
again.
Come back from summer and it's,
So, I mean, there's a lot of things. And you're gonna notice that a lot of the work on here is HVAC work. Which we're still waiting on that piece from Linscomb. He's supposed to be getting me and at that point in time, we can prioritize what those needs are too for your HVAC.
There's been a couple of holdups on stuff, and then availability. Then once we found what we needed, then availability went way out. So, and obviously there's been some price changes as of the 1st of April, really that we're figuring as well.
The very last page, before I turn it over to Paul real quick, the very last page is just some things that we can get started with right now. And I've got some, Ross and I have talked a lot about it, so has Paul and I, about what we can get going with right this minute and get going through the summer with it. Elementary school, we can change out all those faucets. I don't think one of the faucets works in those pre-K through 3rd grade classrooms. I know some of them tell me the hot works, the cold does not, and I can tell by looking at them, they're all corroded and you can't get them apart. We're gonna try to cover that switchboard and the suspension room. They'd like to open a doorway into the office to make it easier to get through. Finish playground mulch, we're gonna take care of that. We're gonna remove the digital sign on the east side of the building. Doesn't work anyway. We'll try to replace the baseboard in the gym office. I mean, these are just little things we can get done that aren't gonna be expensive, little things that can take the building to a new level, maybe at some point in time. Middle school, we're gonna do the air conditioning in the office. High school, lights for the kitchen walk-in, clean hood in the kitchen. We're gonna try to fix a hole in the wall and the leaky faucet up in the biology room. We've got a gun safe that's gonna be installed. We've been asked for safety purposes, to have a gun safe outside those life skills classrooms. Vocational building annex, we can replace that door to the greenhouse. We can replace the ceiling tile over there where needed. We can also look into the HVAC. I didn't put this on the list. We look into the HVAC in that annex building in that greenhouse area, because greenhouse is not usable without that.
Really.
So, junior high gym, air handlers, fixed or replaced. You and I have talked about that. Have you?
No, I think fixing would be the way to go there. I think each of them could be repaired, and I don't know that we really want to go with everything else that we need. I don't know that I think fixing those is probably the better way to go than trying.
I think something needs to be done with them, those there and at the high school, because they sing quite often to us. And
The one, you're talking the main gym?
That's
yeah,
the boiler.
yeah.
Oh, the boiler, yeah.
Athletic complex, we're gonna try to repair the backstops. Continue with the fence replacement. Explain to me how far we've gotten with that replacement.
So we've gone from our last little section we did, we replaced the pieces that were out along the parking area by the softball field, which was in really bad shape. That was the last section that we got. Our next idea was to go to do the section that runs in front of the locker room and over to the gate into the track and football. That was kind of the next section they thought, but grand scheme of the thing, it goes through there and then it goes all the way around the practice football field and then the entire north side down to the end of the base, or basically to meet up with the baseball.
We may have to look to see what that costs
Yeah.
before we do. Baseball, softball dugouts painted. I know there's some interest in lighting that's out there, that some folks don't like the lighting that exists.
Well, are you talking about the parking lighting or the?
I think the entrance lighting and the parking lighting.
Baseball field lighting's horrible because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, there's no other than the football field, there's no athletic lighting, but the lighting coming into the annex or the complex that's all on the city. The city takes care of that all the way into there, so.
Okay.
I don't know if they're.
Perfect.
How much of this work are you trying to do in-house? I mean,
Well, obviously the fencing stuff, that'll be taken out, or being outsourced. As far as the other stuff goes, we'll probably, Lincecum will be helping with most of the HVAC stuff, so that won't be on us. The painting, obviously, we'll take care of as much of the painting as possible. But yeah, as far as the big stuff, that's gonna be.
what about the painting on the elementary school?
I only have one of I did get quotes on that, but when I called initially, I was under the impression that we were talking about the top part of the gym as well as the brown that's along the main floor, so all the way around the building and on that. So that was the initial quote that I got. I only have one of them here, but if we did the entire thing, you're talking like.
You don't have to say it out loud, I guess. If we're getting more quotes.
But we do have, I do have 2 quotes, but the other one I didn't bring was less, but.
Okay.
As far as the top part, I think if we had to, I think we can handle that. But if we had to come down to where we were doing the entire building, then that would take for us to do it, it would probably take our entire summer, it seems like, because that's a lot. If it's just the gym part, I could probably handle that, I think. So.
I think there's some things, just like I was sitting in line yesterday picking up my kid from elementary school, and that from where when I call it the new part, the kindergarten rooms, when they were built on to the old part, it's night and day what it looks like. It looks chalky, and so like I said, I don't know what your quotes are, but I think there's some things that hopefully that we can do just to to beautify I mean, we wanna be good stewards of what we have, take care of it, you know, and if we can organize, I've got some ideas of maybe some parent or some volunteer work to do maybe some landscaping and you know, cause I look at that stuff. So when I drive up and there's bushes that are twice as tall as me, I'm like, this is, you know, and they're people can't walk on the sidewalk because they're sticking so far out. Those are things that we can do that don't cost a lot of money to make your place look, you know, if somebody's driving around, they're you know, we're competing for students. So if somebody's driving around these towns looking at schools, I mean, that stuff matters. When you look at it, you're like, well, they're not even taking care of, they got weeds growing in there, mulch 2 foot high. That stuff, that irks me. I mean, it gets me, you know, when I take my kid to elementary school and there's, you know, I volunteered, I mowed the grass over there one time because I was just not happy about it. Cause you know, before you came, but I volunteered, I went and mowed the grass because my kids were out there playing grass that was 8 inches tall, you know, so I think there's some things that we can do going forward to take care of what we got and not cost us a ton of money, you know, if we can get some, like I said, some volunteer help and do some things, maybe have some Saturdays where we get some groups here from like 8 to noon, and say, hey, we're gonna tackle these things, you know, knock out some stuff and plant some flowers and just make your stuff look good, you know, so that's something hopefully we
The ones that have to do like community service hours, right? I mean, can they,
I don't know, yeah. Get some guys from the jail.
can we use, I mean, no, but can we use,
I don't know. I mean,
like, do you ever have anybody that needs to do community service?
I've never had anyone contact me about that.
But is that an
I'm sure
option?
there- I'm sure
It could be.
there's
We
people out
could-
there. I don't know what, I would have to check and see what the stipulations are on that as far as what they're, you know.
I mean, I know they can work at the park and, you know, other
Right,
places like
yeah, I
that.
remember, you know, years ago, they used to work at at the 4-H fair and stuff like that, so, I mean, it's possible, I would think.
I mean, sure that they could pull weeds and,
Yeah.
that section that you mentioned, the upper part of the gym over there,
Uh-huh.
is that just need pressure washed at?
No, we tried that last year.
Is it?
So we actually had guys up there and we pressure washed it and then we actually scrubbed it with the brush. We were working on the letters mostly because at the time Nicole wanted the letters to be freshened up. She didn't know if they could be just cleaned or if they needed to be repainted, and turns out they need to be repainted,
So what's that dark colored stuff on the side, actually on the brick up there? What is that? Is that?
That's running down.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's just the old paint.
Is that what
We had
that is?
Yeah, we had that pressure washed off. We did get most of that pressure washed off last summer,
yeah.
but then it's just continued to.
so that could probably be pressure washed off again.
The brick, yeah, I'm sure
The
we'll
brick?
get that pressure washed off again. Yeah, it won't be near as hard as it was last year because it's been years that it's been sitting there, and so I think it'll be easier to get it off this year than it was last. But then hopefully a fresh coat of paint on that will keep that from happening.
I'd still like to do a walkthrough at the elementary school.
Yeah, we need to get that done, yeah, before the end of the school year.
My suggestion on this facility project piece is, and like I said, I would like some help from Ross, from one of the board members, or 2 of the board, whatever you guys want to do. I think you need to have a 5-year plan. And I think that needs to show where you prioritize spending your money and what you think is the most dire and which is the least necessary at this point in time.
The old tennis court
We've done that a
parking
few
lot.
times, so
Yeah.
with the new superintendent, I'd say that's where that starts,
Yeah.
So,
because it changes every time.
We've had a 5-year plan 5 times in the last 4 years, so it's.
5-year plan will only get to year 1 and then
Yeah.
start a new 5-year plan.
actually, if you put one together and you get it posted someplace or several places, you get it on the wall and people can watch and they know what your plan states, what you're looking at.
And they'll remind you of it.
That's okay. I mean,
No, that's good, yeah, keep you on track.
so. All right. That's all I've got for that.
There's something for us, Paul?
Yes, Paul.
Okay, so to start off with, the door accesses, most of them the panels are 15, 20 years old. So we were able to go with the same company who installed them. way back when that we'll have a new integration. It was cheaper to go that way, so we didn't have to worry about pulling cables, changing all hardware, because that's very, very expensive. So that's where we were able to cut that cost down really low. But the elementary was obviously the biggest issue. They're having problems with their doors all the time. And the panels that's in there currently are outdated, so if something was to happen to them, we were gonna have to put new panels in anyway. Which with new panels comes new software. Your old software doesn't work with it, so it was just best to do everything all at once. So luckily, Mark and I talked, and he was like, this is something we need to make important, and it was definitely on my to-do list to get that done. So that was that part. As far as the phone system, our phone system is an on-premises phone system, and it uses a gateway, and that's what projects where your phone calls go. Since that time, the gateway on our phone system was no longer supported. And then when you go to buy new phones now, everybody wants to do cloud-based, which is very, very expensive. So I had to do my due diligence and just investigate, find out who handles our Digium phones. I was able to find Edge IT, who is a service provider for the Digium phones. Just to kind of give you an idea of what the cost would have been if we would have to switch. So the total cost we would need almost 130 phones. We've got 122 and we're short. So the cost on the phones alone is about $22,964. And then we would have a monthly, and this monthly fee would be our monthly fee we'd have to pay all the time. 2 years to come, and that's $2,873 per month.
That's going to the cloud, you're saying?
So that would be cloud-based. So on top of that 22,000 for your first year, you'd have another 34,000 on top of that you would annually have to pay. I was able to get with Edge IT, and we found a solution to our phones. So our phones right now with that gateway, we can get rid of the gateway, get rid of two pieces of hardware we no longer need, which is called a PRI trunking, and switch it over to a SIP, which runs off of our internet. So we're basically voice over IP doing it that way. By us doing that, so far what we paid is for a 3-year phone system or phone backup system to Edge IT that will house all of our backups just in case something would ever happen. We can get the phone system back up and dump all the information back in. We don't lose anything. So that was $1,620. That was the savings there. For us to do, and I'll help them, we'll be doing the coding and the upgraded software to our phones. And right now, currently, we pay $533.98 per month for our phone bill. I'm going to be able to drop that down to less than $200 a month.
Wow.
So that's a huge savings, and it saves our phone system. We're not having to spend out that $50,000 that we originally thought we were going to have to spend out. I'm not going to do this. We can wait until summertime when we're not using the phone so much. That gives me and Edge IT time to get in there and do that coding and software change and everything. And then we won't have any more problems with these phones. They should last another 2 years or so.
Yeah.
So
This was going to be part of your 2023 general obligation bond payment. Originally, you had put your phone system in there at about $50,000 to replace the phones. When Paul came to me, he was like a child in a candy store. He was so excited. And I said, that is fantastic. And originally I had it down to about 8,000. I thought, well, we're going to get this way down to 8,000. It's even going to be less than that from what you're telling me. So I applaud Paul for his hard work to find.
Because, I mean, really, you think about it, it's not your money. So you're like, some people will just go out and say, well, this is what we're going to do. I appreciate you going out and that's huge. That's a huge savings. We can use that money in 1,000 other places. So,
sure.
Yeah, appreciate you doing that.
Other than that, that's pretty much all I've got on the IT part of it.
All right, great.
That was enough.
Treasurer, you got anything for us, Vicki?
I do not.
I did just have I had sent you copies of all three of the last 3 months, January, February, and March bank balances, so you got an idea where each of your funds are, where each of all your money lies. Anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask. I think we got behind originally because this January was a 3-pay month, and we have another 3-pay month coming up in August. Those are killers. So.
All right. That, you kind of already heard from you. Do you have anything else for us, or
No, I
no?
think we covered about everything we were thinking about.
Okay. Any board comments on anything?
Nope.
I will say that we've published the contract for our new superintendent. We published it last Thursday. Has to be published in a newspaper for 10 days, and then we'll have a public hearing next Monday in the central office for any public comment wanting to be made on that contract. At that point, 7 days later is when we can officially vote to accept that contract and hire our new superintendent. At that time, probably what will happen after next Monday, after we have our public hearing, it'll be posted. You'll know who that candidate is going to be. Right now, there's not a name connected to it, but after next Monday, there will be. So we're excited about that. So we will have a public hearing next Monday at 6:30 in the central office, and then another special session meeting the following Monday at 6:30 to adopt that contract and hire our new superintendent. So after that, our next upcoming date, May 12th, will be our next regular board meeting at 6:30 right back here. So that's all we have. I need a motion and a second to adjourn our meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.